Hello, and welcome to Storytelling with Puck 2023. We will, as always, start with the story.
5 years ago, I saw something blossom, but I didn't dare to take part. I watched, or rather peeked from the sidelines, and patiently developed my craft. 88,000 words of a memoir later, I believe I've become unstuck. It's time to flex those fingers and get involved with Storytelling with Puck. Storytelling is as old as time. It's a way to get your readers to relate. A connection can be made and spirits raised. Your brand and values can be sealed in its fate. Use a story to argue a point or to explain a complex idea, to sell yourself or your company. It's a great way to talk about your career. As a reader only, you can join in, hear tales that will make you laugh, cry, or smile. For sure, you'll read more than a few stories that will make you reflect for a good while. As a writer, come bring your passion. Tell your stories. You've got this in the bag. Just remember, whenever you post, add the Storytelling with Puck hashtag. You may think that sounds like something that was written by one of us, but it was actually written by the magnificent Tara Thompson, who's joining Storytelling with Puck for the first time this year, and posted another wonderful poem today, actually. So hopefully she'll be on one of the Zooms later in the week, and we'll get to hear that poem too. So thank you very much, Tara. Absolutely incredible.
Welcome everybody to the 5th anniversary of Storytelling with Puck. I can't believe it's been 5 years already. And I think some of you have joined before and know what it's all about. Of course, the clue's in the name. It's all about stories. So this week we encourage you all, if you're on the Zoom call or if you're watching us live, to share your stories all week. So share them on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to share. Use the hashtag Storytelling with Puck, and we will curate all of them into one place at LinkedIn and Facebook, and you can find each other's stories. And of course, then join us on the Zooms during the week too.
And those of you who are on the Zoom obviously already know about the Zooms, and some of you are watching on YouTube as well. So you'll maybe haven't wanted to actually get involved in the Zoom call itself, but you're there in the background watching, and that's just as good. We're happy to have you here. But for those of you who don't know, we will be having 4 Zooms across the week. So you are on one tonight. We've got one coming up on Thursday, another one on Saturday, and finally one next Monday. All of them are exactly the same time, so 7 p.m. in the UK or whatever time it is where you are right now. So it's 8 p.m. actually for us here in the Netherlands. And there is one more Zoom, which is a little bit different, something which we haven't done in the previous years, which is...
It's the Tell It Your Way workshop on Wednesday afternoon. So there we will do something a little bit different, give you some prompts, some tips to help you get started on a story, and then you can go away, do some creativity together, and share the experience.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you much more about that that workshop, because it's hopefully going to just be exciting as it comes up and you find out how it all works on the day itself. But if you have any questions about the rest of the week, please feel free to ask them today on the chat here or on YouTube. Or you can send, oh, Tara's turned up, amazing. Or you can send us messages on LinkedIn as well, and we'll happily answer you whenever, as long as we know the answer. If we don't know the answer, maybe we'll put it out onto the Google and see what they say. Tara, welcome, and so Tara Oliva, thank you for joining the live Zoom today. Tara, you missed, we read your poem that you wrote the other day as an introduction to Storytelling with Puck, so thank you very much for sharing that. That's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so all of the formalities are out of the way. We wanted to get you to know how Storytelling with Puck works, but now it's time to do what we do on all of these evenings and just share loads of stories. So how do you want to start, Sam?
Shall I read one more story that was published today, and then we'll open it up to everybody else? Sense and right. The question is, where do you go when you need to catch your breath, blow off steam, and leave the frenzied busyness behind? Since you're here, let me usher you into this space, a place of majestic trees, abundant foliage, with blooming flowers woven across the colour palette. See, the bench over there? That's my bag, by the way. There I'll sit free from distractions, soaking up solitude and serenity. No weekday crowds around here today. I'll keep coming here again and again, as often as I need to, and be bathed in the creator's amazing masterpiece. Seasons will come and go, times of rebirth, revitalization, renewal. The question is, where do you go? And that was from Ingrid Sangiwa. Thank you very much, Ingrid.
Ingrid joined for the first time last year with Storytelling with Puck, and we were very excited to have her because she writes stories and poems like that. And so we all get to share in that experience. Feel free to take yourselves off mute, guys, and say hello.
Hi there again. My second year participating in the live Zoom. I'm really happy that I could make it today because I actually didn't think I would. I was working the whole day, so could you hear me properly?
Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. Give me a
second. Yeah, I hear myself. Okay. Yeah, I had to work the entire day. I went to a fair, so I thought I was going to arrive quite late and all the time on time to the Storytelling with Puck, but luckily I'm here again. So really happy to be here. Congrats on the 3 years.
Not sure what's going on there. For some reason, when I have my sound on, we have an echo. So I'm just going to change that and switch the computer. Let's see if we can reduce the echo a little.
No problem.
Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And now there's no echo over slide, so apologies. Alibor, please start that again. Apologies.
Yes.
I don't think the others might have heard
no
you.
problem at all. As I was saying, I'm really happy to be here again for my second year Storytelling with Puck. I actually thought I wouldn't make it because I had a fair today at my work, so I was actually quite on time. I literally just arrived home, so I'm really happy to make it. And congrats on the 3E anniversary.
Thank you. It's 5 actually.
Oh, it's 5. Sorry.
No, I know.
Yeah.
The sound hasn't been great, so yeah.
I don't know whether 3 came off my mind.
The first 2 years were quite quiet, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. Well, congrats on the 50th anniversary.
Thank you very
much. By the way.
So welcome, Scott. I saw you've just joined us as well. Thank you very much for joining today. It's good to see you again. I think you're on mute at the moment, Scott.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
I'm quite a technologist.
As you can see,
congratulations. Congratulations on year number 5. Pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's crazy. Until we actually started planning for this year, we hadn't realised it had been 5 years, and we had to go back through the archives and go, has it really been that long? Makes me feel a bit older anyway.
But yeah, it's crazy that 5 years ago, 5 years and 1 week ago, you know, the spark of a small idea of realizing that, oh, it's National Storytelling Week next week. What can we do? We like stories, and it developed into this 5 years later.
So welcome also on your time and on your part, and it's appreciated.
We're very grateful to have all of you guys here as well, and I do apologise. There's a big delay, and so that's why we keep interrupting. We'll try and work this out for next time. Let's see what's going on. So we don't usually have these technical issues. So welcome, Cara, and welcome, Tara, as well.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, very happy to be participating in something like this. It's very, very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, nice to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Tara, I think you're on mute.
There you go. I couldn't find the unmute button. Hi, everyone. Yes, I remember, and obviously, as I put in my post, I just remember when this came up, and I think we're connected because I'm connected to Eleanor. I think that's how Eleanor Gould, and she will say as well, I always faffed about with writing. I couldn't hit the post button, and I thought there's no way I'm not going to be able to take part in this. I'll feel embarrassed. So I think I've come a long way in 5 years, so I'm really happy to take part. I've written the first draft of my memoir. I love writing. I love making mistakes. I love getting feedback. That's not quite working, so I'm happy to be able to take part now. So thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. And we're also very happy you're taking part, because it gave us the introduction to today.
Great.
Your poem today was fantastic as well. So yeah, it's really brilliant. So what we should do, I think, now is rather than just having a chat, let's do what we do best, and start sharing some stories. Do any of you guys have something you would like to share and to kick us off with? I know it's scary, but be brave.
If you need somebody to kick it off, I'd be happy to. I'd have to read it.
That's okay, Dan. That's what most of us are doing, Scott. So yeah, that's all good.
But then after I trip all over myself, it might be easier for other people to step up and.
Well, we all appreciate it. It's very kind. I'm sure you'll be great.
Should I just start?
Yes, please go.
Oh, okay. Well, the appointment is set for 9:30. He needs people to buy his cars, tell him how commercials on our station will reach listeners, and the listeners need cars. But don't worry, kid. He'll do fine. Fake it till you make it. It was my first day in sales. I was given a handful of sales brochures and sent to make a call at a Pontiac dealership. I wasn't making enough money as a radio DJ, so I taken a job at the station's advertising sales team. It was my first day, and I was having second thoughts. Fake it till you make it just didn't sound like a strategy for success. Well, I walked across the Bob George Pontiac showroom and asked to speak to the man my manager had made the appointment with, the sales manager, Ted. I'm sorry, but he had to step out. I've got an appointment. Let me check. I waited, shifting my weight from foot to foot, adjusting my tie, thinking about the sales brochures I hadn't had time to read in my briefcase. I'm sorry, he had to pick up his son at school, but Mr. George can see you. Mr. George? That's the name of the dealer, the guy whose name is on the sign. Okay, I said, more like squeaked. I followed her past offices and a break room to a door that was more elegant than the other doors of the place. She opened it and ushered me in. Nice office. Really nice. Occupied by an imposing older gentleman. He was probably in his early 40s, but at the time, to me, that was old, established, well above my pay grade. Looking at his suit, I became uncomfortably aware of my suit recently purchased from a thrift store. It felt like it had thrift store suit embroidered on it, electrified somehow and flashing. Sit down, he said, pointing to one of the chairs that was considerably smaller than the throne he easily filled on the other side of an imposingly large desk. I sat. I wasn't sure what to do next. Running away didn't seem to be a prudent option, but it was the only suggestion my mind was pushing. Well, I'm Scott Frothingham from the radio station. I was supposed to meet your sales manager because he needs people to buy cars, and commercials on our stations reach listeners, and listeners need cars. I blurted like a 6-year-old telling a mall Santa what he wanted for Christmas. That's your pitch? Have you done this before? No, it's my first day. And they sent you to call on me? No, your sales manager. So you're being hazed, huh? You've been set up. Your first day, they send you to call on Ted. He beats the hell out of you, and you end up crawling back to the stage with your tail between your legs. Old school assholes call this training. Hey, you seem like a nice kid. Let's fuck with these assholes. He turned and pulled a binder out of his credenza. As he handed it to me, he said, study this. Learn it inside and out. Don't tell your boss. Tell him that Ted wasn't here, but you have an appointment with Bob George on Monday at 11 o'clock. He won't let you come alone. I'm too big a prospect. When you come back, pitch me like this teaches. Your boss will shit his pants. I took the binder, How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. On Monday, I returned with my manager, Randy. Again, I followed the receptionist to the fancy door, Mr. George scowled at Randy. I don't know how this kid talked himself into this meeting, but I don't have a lot of time. I presented. Mr. George was engaged. Randy seemed a bit stunned. When I was done, Mr. George signed a 3-month deal, insisting I write and produce the commercials as part of the agreement. Randy seemed more stunned. In the dealership parking lot, the receptionist chased us down and said I'd forgotten my pen. She handed me a pen that definitely wasn't mine, along with a folded piece of paper. Nice, chuckled Randy as he checked out the receptionist walking back to the dealership. Looks like somebody has a secret admirer. That evening, I fished the paper out of my pocket, thinking I'd call the receptionist, who would not so subtly slip me her number. On the paper, it said, "Good job. I think Randy did shit his pants. Come back tomorrow at 11. I got some more stuff for you. Bring back Hopkins. Bob."
That is.
And that's the story.
That is absolutely magnificent, Scott. Oh, I loved it. Can you guys hear us now? Okay, we've tweaked settings, so I'm hoping that it's not quite as bad as it was. You could all come off mute as well, by the way, though.
Yeah, I think as a salesman, you pick up a lot of great stories, Scott.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell, however.
Yeah, well, some of those stories maybe we won't put on the recorded versions.
I loved it. I just figured out how to unmute myself, by the way. What a great story. Do you know what I liked about the story is as I was listening, I started filling in gaps. And then with the piece of paper, great misdirection, because I was like absolutely certain he was getting a job offer. And then, that's what I do. I don't know if anybody else does that. But that's what makes a great story for me. If I start filling gaps and then just try to predict the ending, and then, yeah, that was really good.
Completely with you on that. Is when you get pushed into a certain direction with a story, and then suddenly you think, hang on a second. And yeah, the shock of it, but also what I love about the way you tell stories, Scott, I think I told you this before, is the comedic aspects with the serious backdrop. So there's a message behind what you're saying. However, it kind of goes in accidentally because you're laughing a lot the whole way through. So I really like that.
I'm glad it resonated. In terms of the misdirection, I was misdirected. I thought I was going to get a date with a work at a Pontiac dealership. I had no idea that Mr. George was under his wing for a few weeks.
Well, you got a date of sorts. Just wasn't the kind of date you were hoping for.
True.
So on that wonderful note, has Scott maybe broken the ice? Do one of you guys like to share a story as well?
I have nothing on hand, but I'll bring something to the next Zoom.
Okay, no worries.
I don't mind sharing.
Yes, please.
But it's another poem. I like my poems. But it doesn't rhyme, this one. Hold on a moment. I was just getting it ready. Okay, so there we're. Where are we? Sorry, we don't want silence, do we? But okay. Almost there. Do apologize. If I worked in radio, I'd be fired already, wouldn't I?
You get somebody to give you a first chance like Scott did, and then you'll be fine.
Okay. So this is a poem that I wrote and I've never really shared publicly back in 2011. I spent many years screaming, "Did you hear me?" I spent many years crying. Could you see me? I know you heard nothing, just the tinkle of my laughter, the covering up of my pain. I know you saw nothing except the wild glee in my eye that masked my inner soul. This inner soul, I don't know. I'm starting to know. My inner soul is dying. Well, was dying. I'm giving it resuscitation. I'm saying, hello, soul. I'm here for you now. I don't know how I neglected you. They tried to keep me from you, but I won't let them anymore. I learned from an early age how to hide. Shh, be quiet. I never liked that game, but I learned it. I learned from an early age how to please. I never liked that game either, but I learned it just the same. I learned from an early age how to keep quiet. I was unseen, unheard. They say if a tree falls and no one is around to hear it, does it still make a sound? I ask, if a soul is screaming and no one hears it, does it still make a sound? Of course it does. My soul has screamed into a container. That container is my mind. I open that container and now I hear. I don't want to. It hurts, but I hear. I have to listen to years of screaming. It reverberates even when I switch it off. I'm learning how to switch it off, but still the pressure is relentless. I know it's good for me. I know I have to listen, but someone, something, please help me. I know I will get past this. I know sweet relief will come and the tinkling of my laughter will be real. The glee in my eye will shine true. I see my future. It awaits. But why is it so far? I am for the present, but the present becomes the past so quickly. I want to cherish the here and now, but my soul won't quieten. I'm a slave to myself. Only I can release me. I'm talking to my soul. I'm telling it it will be okay. As my soul begins to believe me, I feel it releasing me slowly. I won't fight the process of my healing. I won't give in to the darkness of the screams. I will live my life, not only in hope, but in action. I will get past this. I will be the me I'm supposed to be. That's it.
Relatable. It's really good. Really, really good.
Oh,
Really
I'm
touching.
glad, and I'm also sad that it's relatable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I were reading this poem, I'd probably go back and reread the first part again, because at first I thought you were communicating with another human,
Mm.
and then I suddenly realized where the conversation was and how it was working, and it gained a lot more power that way.
Yeah.
If I'm not too cheeky, could
I
you
like
maybe
that.
just
I-
read
like
the
I say, I
first
would
few lines
reread it.
again?
Sorry, I had two voices. Say it again. Scott, sorry, what did
Oh,
you
I
say?
was saying that I liked it,
Oh,
and
okay.
you know, because at first I was in the wrong place, getting to the right
Mm.
place made it that much stronger and moving.
Glad to hear that. And so what were you saying, Stefano?
Oh yes, I'm trying not to wait to make sure I'm not interrupting because of the lazy.
That's okay.
I was just saying, if it's not too cheeky, could you maybe read just those first few lines again? Because I agree with Scott.
Yeah,
I think, it'll be really nice now we've got the whole picture to hear those lines.
hear-
Those
So the first, well, just stop me when I get there. I spent
as far
many
as you
years
feel like.
screaming. Oh, okay. The first part here, I spent many years screaming. Did you hear me? I spent many years crying. Could you see me? I know you heard nothing, just the tinkle of my laughter, the covering up of my pain. I know you saw nothing except the wild glee in my eye that masks my inner soul. Is that what you're talking about? It sounds like I'm speaking with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also
I
realized
was.
when you finished that I'd been like holding my breath from about halfway through. I find it so
Um,
interesting when you have like a physical reaction to something that you're hearing or reading.
It was important for me to be able to share this because when I wrote it, I didn't think like I've got to be positive, but I didn't believe in the end. But I've got to the end, so I'm very, very happy to share that because I was actually smiling as I was getting to the end myself because I was like going and like, yeah, we did it. So yeah, I'll write more poetry to myself.
You should.
But I'm glad you really enjoyed it.
And then when you feel ready, make it less for yourself and for all of us. So we can all
No worries.
Yeah.
I'm happy to share. I've got plans for this storytelling with Pug. Don't worry.
I think
Oh.
if you read that in front of a group, you'd get a lot of hugs.
Oh, and I love hugs. That'd be great. I'll have to do that in my lifetime.
Probably the kind of
I'll take
hugs that you're wondering, is this guy going to let go?
Don't like those hugs quite as much. Aliva, would you like to read something? No pressure, by the way. Sorry, no, I'm
No
just
pressure.
it.
I always leave it to the end, of course. Actually got some things that's mostly inspired by the fact that mostly out of inspiration. And I actually thought when you have no idea how to be creative with stories, then why not starting with your own? So I wrote this short bit based on that idea. It's called The Girl and the Sea. She was born in a small town. She first moved when she was just about 6 months old to a house by the sea. There, she learned to swim like a fish, but dreamed of flying like a seagull. To discover what could be beyond the horizon line she saw every day through her window. She enjoyed reading. She read a lot. By the age of 8, she had already traveled the world across different countries, magical hills, forests, and neverlands. I'm going to write a book, she used to say. She puffed out her chest with pride, and with determination, she devoted after-school hours to write in her little yellow notebook. Once started, she'd never finish her tales, though. And so she lived until she became a grown-up woman, a dreamer. And yes, she managed to visit places she had never seen. But sadly, they weren't as magical as in her childhood dreams. The bitter taste of adulthood. She never stopped thinking about that horizon line after all. And so she realized that magic was nowhere to be found but within. And the tale? Well, she's still writing. It became a never-ending tale, as a passion resides in the minds and hearts of many daring young girls. That's it.
You guys are hitting it hard tonight.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks. Thank you.
I like that. I think the part that resonated with me a little bit as well was the bittersweet of adulthood. Like, how many times were we like, I just can't wait until I'm old enough.
I know.
And now it's like, I wish I could just kind of go back. So I could relate to that. That's really good.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
The power we have as adults with the lack of responsibility we have as children. That's the combination we somehow need to find, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
I absolutely love that. I'm still processing it. I realize I'm just putting silence out for you.
Make sure to
But,
post it on
yeah.
LinkedIn or on Facebook at least. I'll see where you can post it.
Amazing, yeah, please do. Because again, with all of these, I love being able to, as Scott said earlier about Tara's, but I love being able to read them back and to focus in on some of the little bits that you might miss, and kind of gathering the whole story again. There's always the first time, which is emotional and hits you, and you feel something visceral, I guess. And then every time you read it again and again, you learn something and there's something new. And so, yeah, I'm absolutely loving these stories. So thank you guys so much for sharing. If it's okay, do you think? Should I have a read? Maybe I'll read a story if that's okay. One of my own this time.
That'd be great.
Walking towards the junction, Jack saw two men on a moped abruptly stop. They turned to two ladies opposite and sneered before shouting and screaming. Their words were full of vitriol, racism. Going back to where you came from, take that shit off your head. You've all heard this kind of stuff before. Jack started shaking involuntarily. He took a second to compose himself and gave a reassuring wink to the ladies. The two men saw Jack and started moving away. They were quick, but thankfully, Jack's moped was parked just in the right place. He jumped on, and he weaved through the traffic. Oh, the white rider in front was fast, and he knew how to maneuver his bike. Footpaths were no obstacle. They were a getaway, but Jack was ready. He knew these streets better than most, so he pursued the men to a dead end. They knew they had no way of riding back past Jack, so they got off the bike and took out their knives. Jack laughed, which sent the fear of God into them, but they didn't back down. They attacked Jack with everything they had. Jack subdued them and gave them a good old-fashioned beating before waking up and realizing he was still stood on the side of the road, helpless. Jack caught a glimpse of one of the women across the street. She had a tear streaming down her eye, connecting directly with a cut where one of the men had just scratched her with some keys. Jack thought for a second about how much the salty tear would sting, and then came back to reality. The women were being taken care of by a group of 5, maybe 6 people who had all rushed past Jack to help the ladies. Nobody thought it was a good idea to chase the idiots. They just called the police and made sure the ladies were okay. Jack turned on a sixpence and went back the way he came. It was the opposite way to his home, but he didn't care. He'd probably watch another superhero film tonight, but that moment proved he was no superhero. There weren't any superheroes. There were heroes. Not one of them wore a cape. Not one of them got into a fight. But each one showed kindness and compassion. Jack, well, he just froze. This was the moment that Jack decided he would no longer strive to be a superhero. Instead, he'd aim to be an exceptional human being.
Yes. I've got to find the reaction buttons on here and hit them. It's there.
Yeah.
Look, I found
Brilliant.
it. Yay!
Love
I
that one.
like the phrase "turned on his sixpence." Gave me some memories of back in the day. But yeah, this is really good. It's and I think I mentioned in the comments I could relate to both Jack and the women. So yeah, good story.
Yeah,
Exceptional human.
exceptional human is a good place to aim for. I think it's interesting because the inspiration from that story, it came from me actually witnessing a horrible incident with guys on the moped causing racism. It obviously didn't happen anything quite like that. I saw it from a distance, and instantly it was way too quick. There wasn't the same level of racism. There wasn't the same. It wasn't quite as obvious. But I just remember seeing it from a distance and going, I couldn't have done anything there. I mean, the women were fine, none of them were cut. It wasn't anywhere near as bad. I exaggerated for the purpose of fiction. But yeah, I just remember having that feeling of looking at them and going, I don't know what I would have been able to do. Even if it had gotten worse, if they had done even more than they did when they were on the moped. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from. And then it's horrible thinking about.
It's a really
Even
good
thinking.
example of what you were saying before about using emotion and like the one moment to kind of drive a story. So I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up with plot and you're actually not making people feel anything. I think a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite true, because thanks to this storytelling with Puck, I want to explore writing short stories and not just poems. And I'm one of those that I have to have everything in, but I have a plot, that I have something. I like the idea of having that emotion drive the story, because you want the readers to connect.
Yeah, that's usually how I start, and often when we start in storytelling with Puck, and if people who haven't joined before, they're like, I want to join, but I don't have any stories. What Cara just mentioned, then that's always my advice. It's just think of literally one moment where you felt something, and it can be anything. And I'm sure you have these every single day. So it can be a moment where something amused you. It can be a moment where you felt angry. It can be a moment where you felt excited or hopeful about something. And then that is the basis of your story. And then all you need to do is look at, well, how did I get to that point? And then what was the result afterwards from that point? And you've got a very, very basic story. If you share just that, I guarantee you people will want to read and want to listen. And then the skill of expanding that story comes over time, but you don't have to have a perfect story for people to want to listen. People in the pub sharing stories, or bar or in a cafe or wherever you are, depending on whether or not you have pubs. But they're not perfect storytellers most of the time. They don't have an incredible plot line and all of these different layers attached to their story. They just, something happened and they decided to tell it, and they might have quite an amusing way of doing it, or whatever it is. So that's where the difference lies, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think a story like that is, even though it's personal, and when you write it, it's personal and it's something about you, the moment itself is so identifiable, because you don't know me, and I don't know you, or I can imagine there are, now that I think about it, everybody has that moment in their mind where they see themselves stepping up, whether it's a Walter Mitty moment, whether it's a fantasy in school or in work or something, where you're the person who steps up and does the right thing with panache and strength and superhero qualities. And then we all have that moment where maybe the opportunity knocks, and we have to come to terms with the fact that we're not that fantasy figure that we thought we were, or maybe we're shocked by the fact that we are.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you were to tell that story, you could have finished it a lot less well than you did. It was very nicely presented and written. I think you'd already gotten into people's minds, and you'd already touched them, and almost anything you wrote after that, I'm just getting carried along, because it's not you by your moped. It's me considering when I had the opportunity to be the hero, or when I was the hero, or either way. And so you've gotten me so wrapped up in that I'm sort of telling the story with you.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that relationship works, and also I'm very grateful for your kind words. But yeah, I can definitely see how that relationship works. And there's one more thing as well, and Tara, you mentioned it here, and you also mentioned it in your comment. I feel like a lot of people will also relate to the two ladies on the side of the road, and that's a whole other story, which, the way I write the story was taking it from the perspective of how I kind of felt, and then exaggerating it to make it a fictional story from that point of view. But I also wrote it with, in the back of my mind, there are going to be people who are the ladies on the side of the road being attacked, and the reaction of everyone else around them is going to mean something to them. The initial incident, how somebody does
Mm.
either go all superhero mode, or actually they go and they take care of the two ladies and try and look after them, or they just ignore them and turn their backs and go the other way, or maybe join in with the people on the mopeds. There's all these different possibilities that could happen. And I feel like that was my intention anyway. I hope it came across. People reading that will have their own experiences, their own understanding, and also their own emotions attached to, I guess, that kind of scenario happening. And so that's part of the reason I wanted to write it, was to see if then we could get into a little bit more into the minds of the two ladies, as well as getting into the mind of the guy who was a little bit worried about his own ability to be a superhero, if that makes sense.
But you
That's what I
pulled
was
that
trying
off.
to do. I don't know if it worked like that, but
I think you pulled that off because the personal helplessness you felt at how to react or what to do, to me, directly related to the personal helplessness of these women in the situation you were at. And I think that was the link that allowed us to see it from both points. Now, I didn't identify with the protagonist, with the aggressors, but by your storytelling, I identified with you and the women, and then identified with the people who helped. So you sort of did tell that story from three angles, although you only obviously were coming from one.
okay, well, I appreciate that. It feels weird analysing my work in that much detail.
Well, I think
But
maybe I'm just saying that it's better than you thought.
no, that's very kind. But now I'm going to stop talking about me because I feel weird. And let's have another story, shall we? I think now we have had a story from everybody in the room, so it's open court, open season. If anybody would like to share something else.
I actually found a poem that I wrote a while ago. I can read, and I think one of the things that I want to do in these sessions is get away from poetry and really into storytelling. But yeah, in the absence of a story, I'll read a poem.
Amazing. Poetry is also awesome and a form of storytelling, I will say, by that.
Yes, of stories. Maybe we should say that it doesn't have to be written. It can be spoken word. It can be videos, photography, paintings. I don't know, anything.
Illustrations, interpretive dance, if you like.
Yeah.
We've got a challenge for somebody in figure dance this year.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. At least it's not interpretive dance. I'm not feeling self-conscious reading my stuff.
Okay, on that note, we're going to leave you to read your poem. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a poem I wrote a little while ago. It's a sonnet, and it's called Lightning Love. My love for you is like a lightning storm. I love to taste the rain on crackling air, see purple cloud dissolve and lose its form, to have the white light shiver through my hair. While others cower, we reach arms up high. Metallic eyes grow wide, infused with light. Our love a violent blaze on smashed gem sky, kaleidoscopic hues of dark and bright. Our love electrifies the searing place. It singes deep the tall trees of our souls. The roar of rain and fire gathering pace. And yet we love in shimmers, not in holes. Our love is flash and crash with no warm tones, just this shared thunder ringing in our bones.
That was very powerful. I related to it, and I'm going to tell you more about me just by saying that. I just thought toxic. It just reminds me of one of my toxic relationships where it was just so like
Yeah, it's like an
and all.
poem.
Yeah, it was. That was my interpretation, and it's probably because I was taking a literal interpretation of like metallic and clash and all that. I like that a lot. I like that. It made me smile.
I loved it too, and especially we love in shimmers, not in holes. Really, that line just went.
Wow.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know how to put that into words. As a writer, I probably should, but
Oh, thanks.
it's all I've got. Yeah.
Just curiously, how long did it take you to write that, and how much fine tuning did you do? I can't imagine that it took any less than like 10 or 12 rewritings of picking the right words and changing things, or does things like this come easy to you?
I don't know. Actually, I wrote this like under the constraint of it being a sonnet, because it was for like a writing group. So I think that helped to make it so narrow that like you are kind of constrained by that form, and things have to rhyme. So you've only got a limited amount of things limited amount of words that you can use to make it rhyme. So I think that somehow helped, weirdly.
Because the word choice was wonderful, and it was just hard for me to imagine that I wouldn't have written each word and then looked at it again a day later and rewritten, and looked at it a day later and rewritten. It's wonderful you're able to let this flow from your emotions.
Thanks.
How do people feel
Following
about?
on from that,
Oh, sorry. No, go on, Tara. Go.
I wanted to ask Cara, just to the question that Scott asked, do you rewrite your poems? Do you edit them?
It depends. Sometimes I'll edit them a little bit, like in the time right after I've written them, but then at some point, like that's the poem, and it feels weird to change it. Do you have the same thing?
Yeah, I never edit a poem ever, even if there's a grammatical thing. And it's really weird because I feel like I've been forever a creative writer, but what's always held me back was that I will edit and re-edit. I've learned not to edit while I'm writing, but that's because I took part in NaNoWriMo, and so you had no choice then. But even now, when it comes to poetry, I'm write it once and be done. But I've never taken a poetry course or anything, and I'm thinking about doing that because it'd be interesting for me, at least, to find out how other people approach poetry, and that's why I asked if you edit. But you know, it feels more personal, so I just think if I change it, then I'm changing what I felt.
Yeah,
I don't
do a
know
lot
if
of
anybody else has that.
almost copying and pasting and changing the lines around, and then scrapping a line, but then at some point, like when it's done, it's
done. Yeah. It's very similar. Thank you.
One of my favorite quotes was from Jackson Pollock, the painter, and a reporter who was not obviously enthralled with Pollock's work and didn't understand his fame, had said, how do you know when one of these paintings is done? And Pollock thought a minute. He said, how do you know when you finish making love? And so I guess you guys know what it's done. I'm not a poet, and
that's a good one.
and hearing that you guys can write it, let that emotion flow, and then step away and accept it for that moment in time, is interesting to me and pretty amazing.
Yes, it's truly giving yourself into the writing process and putting your emotions on paper. Just having to leave everything behind, everything you learn at school or even at work, if you're even involved in writing, and just like, enjoying everything. I think it's just about it. And for me, it's still really difficult, by the way. I mean, I don't usually write poems. My dad does, and I didn't get anything from my dad. I didn't inherit it from my dad, let's say. But luckily, I enjoy writing other things.
I think for me, and the reason why I probably submitted poetry, because I find it a lot easier, because no one can correct my grammar in a poem. Because
exactly,
even if it is a mistake, I'm like, oh, that's kind of what I meant. Whereas with, you know, with the story, which I will be doing a non-poetry story, I think it will take me way, way, way longer. I think I could probably write about 3 or 4 poems and still not get a short, like 400-word story done. So yeah, so I liked what you said, that yeah, it's just getting the emotions out, and you just, as far as I was concerned, you can't edit an emotion. That's what it was in that time.
Something though through this conversation that I found interesting is the question around constraints. And you mentioned that you were constrained by the rules and the rigor of having to write a sonnet, Cara. And poetry in its different forms has different rules, and then there's sometimes poetry which you just write open, and you can get away from the rules as much as possible. For me, I found it important to learn a lot of different ways of writing poetry within the constraints and within the rules, because actually it then made it, I think, my poetry better when I'm then writing freely, because I've got that understanding, and that I've understood the challenge of having to twist things around, if that makes sense, and having to go, oh, hang on a minute, this sounds good in my head, but it doesn't work for them. So I'm going to have to change it. I'm going to have to do something different. So that was going to be my question to all of you. And with both writing and with, with both poetry and with writing in general, or just creating stories, or if you guys create art or anything like that, do you find that constraints help your creativity? Do you find that they make it harder? Do you find that it makes your eventual result better? What's your ideas, or what are your ideas on constraints and what they do to the creative process?
I can answer that. Sorry, it's got very loud here, so let me know if it's disruptive. I'm one of those people that I need a template. I love frameworks, processes, templates. And when I started writing my memoir, that's all I did, is I searched for like the perfect template. And I actually found one called Good Story. And that helped me to start structuring my memoir, so that I was writing literally like one chapter. There was an action, then there was a reflection. The action one had 1,500 words. The reflection part had 1,500 words. Action was all action, reflection. I was like in heaven. And then as I carried on writing it, I didn't write it that way. I developed, obviously, my own style and my way and so forth. So I would say, for me, if it's something I'm starting out with, and I'm not too sure, I'll definitely go for, what is the rule? And then once I get going, I'm like, yeah, let's just put a twist on that rule and change that up a bit. But not just to be like, oh, this is what I feel like doing, but to fit the story that I'm telling.
That makes a lot of sense to me. But I won't come back to that yet. What about everyone else? How do you all feel?
I have about the same feeling. Sometimes I need that constraint, of some level of constraint, to be able to create something.
Yeah, I think it's
If
good
it weren't for deadlines, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
If it weren't for deadlines, I'd never finish anything. They'd all be a work in progress, because I can always tweak and twist, and I may have learned to step away from it on my own. But pretty much, constraints help me focus and help me finish, or help me at least say, I'll hand this in now. It's done for now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you coming from a radio writing background as well, Scott, I think we've been down similar paths in that way too.
Yeah, I also come from radio.
Times. Oh, amazing. And you were just about to say, because this is the perfect segue now, you were just about to say.
I know, just that I sometimes like the constraints, because I think I've got like a rule breaking element that it's always trying to find like another angle to look at the theme or something unexpected. And that helps a lot.
It's interesting. I think it seems like we're all on a similar page, that the constraints can be useful. They can get you somewhere. They can help you to actually get things done. As Scott says, they can help you to start as well. So the opposite end, as I think Tara said at the beginning, I think we all kind of agreed with that. But then we all have that little bit in us which says there comes a time when maybe we want to smash through the doors and just completely be free. And as far as I'm concerned, with my writing, that's the perfect way to write. It helps me to write, to have those constraints. If I'm writing for a client, I really need those constraints. But then if I'm writing for myself, I'm kind of like, okay, I now know and I understand it well enough. So it means I can do what I want without, I think I can't remember what it was, but there's something along the lines, there's an old saying which says you have to know the rules before you can break the rules. And I think that's sometimes the importance of those constraints as well. If you get the rules and you completely understand them, and I think this especially works with grammar too, then go ahead and break them. That's fine. But if you're breaking them accidentally, then it might be hard for other people to understand what you're trying to portray, because actually grammar's not just there for to be tight and to annoy you. It actually has a purpose, and it's there to make it clearer for other people to understand. So I think that's how I see it anyway. And obviously grammar's not the only constraint. There's lots of there's lots of other things. I think it's probably time for, if everyone's up for it, another story. If there's anybody,
can I interrupt? I apologize. I have to leave.
Not at all.
Thank you for having me, and it was a wonderful stop by and see you and to meet you, wonderful people, and to be and to get my jealousy tweaked by some of your fine work. So thank you so much for having me, and once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you
It's
very
nice
much.
meeting you, Scott. Bye.
You've left
I
us
know.
all green as well, Scott, with your work. So hopefully we'll get to see you a little bit more later in the week, and maybe we'll see some of your stories on LinkedIn and Facebook too.
Wonderful.
If
Thank
that's
you.
not too cheeky to ask.
Bye all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Okay, so I guess Scott's not going to read the next story. But would anybody like to volunteer?
I have a funny one. Sorry.
That
Yeah.
of deep and dark stories.
I don't usually write funny things. Oh well, I do. But anyways, it's a bit like feeling like an expat is not actually the most easy feeling ever. I mean, since I've moved here, it's been nearly 5 years since I moved here. I'm just as old as my stage, just as old as Puck. Storytelling with Puck. So I once remember something my dad said. It's like, if you're not in the Netherlands, and there's something called integration process. So if you're not from the EU, you have to undergo sort of the whole process of staying here so you can get a visa. And since I'm from Brazil originally, I had to go through a couple of exams and then through a whole process that took me a couple of months. So I could finally get my hands on my visa. And on that, they actually suggest you have to comply with a couple of things inside society, the Dutch society. And my dad once asked me something. Yeah, I mean, how far is this integration process is going? I mean, are they so whole that they make you feel like you're not you anymore? She actually said it as a joke, but it got me thinking. I mean, you are an expat, but you come from another place. I mean, how do you feel in between, actually? Where are you actually from? I mean, where do you actually feel home? So, and there is a song I really like from Sting. I think you probably know which one it is. I'm probably quite sure you heard of Englishman in New York. And I really like this song. Actually, every time I listen to it, I hear it, I kind of feel like I'm in this song. Only I'm no Englishman. I'm a Brazilian woman. So I kind of took the lyrics and actually tried to fit my my situation in the lyric. And no, I'm not going to be singing for you guys tonight. So I'm just gonna. Okay, let's get it. All right. So I love coffee. Yes, I'll take 2, my dear. I like cheese bread and I love corn. And you can hear it, my accent when I talk. I'm a Brazilian in Dorp. See me cycling past the Times Square in Amsterdam. 1 or 2 canals here at my side. And yes, I go cycling everywhere I go. I'm a Brazilian, and no, I can't rhyme. Oh, I'm an alien. I'm definitely an alien. I'm a Brazilian in Andorra. Yes, I know, I'm an alien. They see me as an alien. I'm a Brazilian living in Andorra. If being direct at what takes to make you fit here, let me tell you what I think. I don't give a damn what you think, dear. Yeah, be yourself, no matter what they say. Directness and Dutch prepositions can be quite annoying, I know. Maybe I've already become Dutch. Kindness seems to be rare in this society. And on a rainy day, a smile can change everything. But it takes more than nice weather for people to be gezellig. With another words in Dutch, like people can be like nice and everything can be quite cozy. It takes more than a visa to integrate. But integrate and don't give away your essence. Before being an expat, you were unique. If being direct at what makes you fit here, let me tell you what I think. You don't. Be yourself, no matter what they say.
I love that.
Love it. Can totally relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, another one I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you read the last few lines? There
Yes.
was yeah, let me see if it's the part.
Integrate. Okay, let's see. It takes more than a visa to integrate, but you should integrate and don't give your essence. Before being an expat, you're unique. And if being direct what makes you fit here, no, you don't have to. Yeah, be yourself, no matter what they say. I kind of changed the lines a bit, but
yeah, that's the part that I could, yeah, totally relate to, because it's clever that you rewrote the song with your own words, and that was kind of good. But then the actual words themselves, having been brought up in a dual culture, I also lived in Spain for 17 years, so I was an expat. I also have a problem with the word expat and, immigrants. All of this came up in just that. And I love how you said, oh, this is a funny thing. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny, but actually it's really powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, and
Thank
such
you.
like clever Dutch references like woven in such like an entertaining, smart way is really cool.
Yeah. I didn't know everyone was so creative. I would have joined ages ago.
You're very much part of the crowd, Tara. Part of the creative crowd, that's for sure.
That was so good. That was so good.
Oh no, I'm absolutely loving the creativity. If it's okay, there's actually a very creative person who isn't here, but I think some of us, quite a few of us, know. Tara, you actually mentioned her at the beginning today. Eleanor Gould, and she wrote a story for, what year was this?
I think it was last year.
For last year's Storytelling with Puck, and I'm going to volunteer Cyan to read it.
It was Friday, dark and late. I was exhausted and refused to believe him, but his words hit me like a hurricane. I can still hear them now, echoing through time. Deep down, my instincts screamed out he was onto something. Something big. A theory so cunning, yet simple. Profound. Penetrating, even. His hands gripped my coat tight as he pulled me towards him. He opened his mouth, hesitated, and snapped it shut again. And then he whispered, always start with a hook, reel them in with a dirt cheap metaphor, make one sentence lead to another. We heard footsteps. He turned to run, but before he did so, he glanced back one last time and in a low voice uttered, and remember, you must always end on a cliffhanger.
Oh,
That was
Eleanor,
really
you
good.
genius.
I do love
Clever.
Eleanor.
Yeah.
So clever. Yeah, that was
I only
good.
wish to be that
Eleanor
clever.
is so good. Eleanor is just such an amazing storyteller. Like, yay. I have to-
I think. Sorry, go on.
No, it's probably me and my background and you myself.
Oh, sorry. I think the way that she gets you into it, it could be like this amazing story. It could be everyone's waiting for the next moment. But the craft of making it so unbelievably vague, that it actually is making a wider point about stories in themselves. It's what's the new word they call it these days? It's quite meta. Stories about stories about stories, eh? Absolutely loved it. Right, so does anybody else want to volunteer themselves for a story? I realise that you might be running out of ammo as we continue, but does anybody have anything they would like to share?
I don't, but I would like to know what happened to my background.
Well, maybe we can create a
It's so
story.
random.
Yes.
I think it's every time
Once
I
upon
try
a
to unmute myself, it just comes up. What is that?
Once upon a time in a land far, far away, Tara Tamiko joined Storytelling with Puck on a Zoom call. The more she heard the stories, the less she felt attached to Earth.
That is quite good, actually. That is quite good. Oh, dear.
There we go. We can create our own stories, eh? Okay. Well, I think as we seem to be running a little bit low on ammo for stories for the end of the evening. I think what we could do is, if you don't mind, I'll read one last story, not by me again, by a regular to Storytelling with Puck, called Yulia Farkash. So sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Yulia. But I hope it's close to Yulia Farkash. And it's called Do You Dare? And then once I finish that story, we can leave for the evening, hopefully high on the power of stories. And I really hope that you can all join us again on Wednesday for the Tell It Your Way workshop. And then for the rest of the evenings on Thursday, Saturday, and Monday. You are all obviously very, very welcome. And you've got a few days to build up your supplies.
So we will, as always, end with a story.
Do you dare? Wake me from the sleep that has kept me as I am. Call me by my name, even if I've forgotten it. Walk beside me when all I know is running. Hold my hand when my knees bleed from all the stumbling. Look me in the eyes and see what torments me. Whisper in my ear when all my thoughts are shouting. Warm the edges that were ice cold for far too long. See past the thorns, the walls, the ashes, right into my very soul. Hold my dreams and hopes so dear to your heart. Soothe the shoulders that carried the world one too many times. Softly kiss the scar tissue of disappointment, hurt, and rejection. Stand by me as I remember who I really am. Thank you, everybody. Good night.